Hello, welcome to Season 1, Episode 5 of Life Beyond Loss, the podcast. If you haven't already heard, this is a guest show where we share the most amazing and inspirational stories of navigating grief and loss through to healing and transformation. I'm your host, Louise Kresick, grief and loss coach, and today we're diving into the story of Martin Seville. It's a story of loss of physical and mental health, which resulted in him feeling unable to just go on. But through all Martin's struggles, he's now able to share his story and coach others before they get to that place of severe stress and burnout. Listen in to hear all about this hero's journey. I'm joined on today's show by the wonderful Martin Seville, empowerment coach. Welcome, Martin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Louise. Good to be here.
But tell us, I'm really kind of intrigued now about, the empowerment coach bit. So,
yeah.
And I know a little bit about your story, but tell us what's an empowerment coach? What does an empowerment coach do?
That's a very good question. If people ask me, what do you do? I say empowerment coach, and they roll their eyes and go, move on. What is that all about? How have I come to be an empowerment coach? Well, it kind of links to, I believe that you are good enough. Okay. Now, a lot of people don't believe they are good enough in many ways in life, but I believe you are good enough. And I believe that you are the hero of your own life story. You're not the narrator, the reader, or a bit part. You should be the central character, the hero. So how that translates into what I do is I help corporate professionals, managers, entrepreneurs, business owners who are struggling with their workload, their time, their priorities, that balance between work and family. And I help them not leave it too late to deal with the overwhelming stress that they will be feeling as a result of that. And what I do is I coach that. It's not just about coping strategies. It's actually about understanding yourself better so that you can make healthier choices and do the right things for the right reasons. And basically by doing this, you'll be empowered to finally be yourself. You'll realize you are good enough. And in fact, you were always good enough, and that you can take control of your life and be healthier and happier and have a more fulfilling life, both at work and at home. And so that's kind of what I mean by empowerment. And it's also what I mean by becoming the hero of your own story.
And who's your hero?
Who's my hero?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm the hero of my own story.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get there. And that's kind of, that's what I've done through all of my experience. I've created this kind of system and program called The Hero's Journey, which is obviously based on the storytelling concept of the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. But I use it to bring out the 3 key lessons needed to bring like a conscientious professional from overwhelmed and stressed to a point where they can't just manage that stress better. They can make healthier and more conscious decisions and put some control of their story. And it's all about action. It's all about your thought processes, and it's all about your belief systems. So for me, I've been on a hero's journey, and I do have many heroes or mentors in my life, but it's such an empowering thing for me to finally, after what was a 20-year journey, to actually stand in my own shoes and to be the hero of my story rather than living somebody else's life, which is essentially what I had been doing.
Good answer. Good
Thanks.
answer. I love that.
I hope it made sense.
No,
to you.
I thought you were going to come out with some sort of like Marvel character or something.
Okay, it's the Hulk.
There we go. There's the real.
It's Hulk, and yeah, Tony Stark and Cap are a close second. But
oh, so you are a secret Marvel fan. I knew it.
Come on, we just talk business, but at the end of the day, I love my movies. I love my Marvel. I love music. I love Lego. So, and I'm a complete nerd. So, yes, I'm all about empowerment. Yes, I've been on a heck of a journey. Yes, I love helping people. Yes, my life's purpose now is to help people so they don't make the same mistakes I do. But I'm a kid at heart, and I love all that stuff. And you know what? When you finally step into your own shoes, you can love all that stuff without feeling guilty or stupid or not worthy. You know? Brilliant.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. It's, you feel, I think, altogether more comfortable about just who you are as a person and being able to kind of show up, authentically, just as you are.
You've used the A word, authentic. That's exactly what it is. It's about being able to be yourself. And, it's a lot of people, or we're all guilty of it, go through life wearing different masks or different hats, as I call it. But at the end of the day, really, you should just be yourself.
So what's led you to this kind of your life purpose and your mission then? Was there a particular kind of, turning point in your life?
There was. There was certainly some turning points. It's funny, I'll give you the brief version. When I looked at my story, and I had a great mentor called, Ted McGrath, and he's all about story. And he really said, Martin, look at your story in depth, not just the recent years, but go right back. When did it really begin? Your journey that you've been on. When did it begin? And for me, I found that, and it might resonate with other people. I've certainly found that the more I talk about it, it resonates with a lot of people. I was, I've done my A levels, and so it's kind of looking at the world at that point. So I'm like, 17, 18. I'm creative. I'm musical. I love the outdoors. I'm a people person. So I'm all about the arts and creativity. Academics is, I can hold my own, but it didn't really set me alight, to be honest. So what do I go and do at that point, being that sort of person? My career advisor has just advised me to, you'd be a really good forest ranger, right? I'm thinking forest ranger. So actually, that sounds pretty cool. But right, there's this voice in my head that says, well, actually, Martin, if you're going to be now successful, professional, credible going forward, you're going to have to get a decent job. And my dad was in the police force and had been since he was 16. I knew I didn't want to follow that because I'd kind of seen the stress that leaves on the family and not being with the family for a long time. So I thought, well, it's going to be business. So I had this voice saying, right, well, you're going to have to study business and go into business then, despite who I was and that person I was. So I went to university and studied business and marketing and IT and stuff. So this non-academic then put himself through another 4 years of academia. And it did lead to great things. It led me to being in the financial services industry. It's not an industry I would have chosen. But, it happened. And it felt like a good fit for that voice in my head saying, well, it's professional, it's kind of credible. And actually, the more I did it, and I went through various companies and I went through various roles, and with every restructure, which was every 6 to 18 months, no matter what company I was in, I always secured another job. I got more responsibility. And you know what? You suddenly, you feel, well, okay, maybe this is it. It wasn't the path I was going to choose, but let's go with it. And so you get this success, and I did amazing things for customers, did amazing things for my colleagues, did amazing things for the business. But inside, there was just something, I didn't feel like I belonged. And when you are somebody with great success, doing amazing things, responsible for millions of customers and billions of pounds worth of profit, for somebody to say, well, actually, I don't feel like I fit, it feels really weird saying that. But there I was, And the thing is, with every bit more responsibility I got, especially in the last 10 years, things being stripped back, you end up doing this equivalent of like 6 people's roles because everybody else has been stripped. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in this world where you just feel like you're not good enough. And what happened was essentially over a 10-year period, I didn't realize it was happening, because you normalize it. You get a bit stressed, and then you go, well, this is kind of how it is. This is how it's got to be, because this is, this is the business world. And then you get more and more stress, and you kind of go, well, okay, well, I don't really feel like I can cope with this, but this has got to be how it is, right? And you look around, everybody else is kind of working. They're probably thinking the same thing. And then, unfortunately, one day, I was sat at my desk, looking at my computer screen, and, there I was. My vision went all blurry. I started shaking. My heart was beating like, I'd been running a marathon. My head was absolutely pounding. I just couldn't focus, couldn't concentrate. And, in the office, 3,000 people in this office, everybody rushing around in suits and everything. And I'm there thinking, what on earth is going on? And that was my first breakdown. And essentially, I say this now to people, that if you leave stress too long, if you leave it untreated, it will get to a point where your body and mind will take that decision out of your hand. It will basically start shutting down. And that's what happens when you have a breakdown. Your body and mind say, enough is enough. I can't cope with all this stress that you've basically been piling on me for years and years and years. And then it starts shutting down. And then you're in real trouble then, because you're really ill. So, going back to kind of my statement earlier about what I do, I don't want people to get to that point, because by that point, you're really ill and it's going to take some recovery. I want to catch you earlier than that, because actually what I've got to teach people is amazing for people that aren't ill. And that was one of the revelations for me. But, that was my first breakdown. And I went on the kind of journey then of, okay, I went to the doctors, and there was, meds, and there was, I went on lots of NHS courses, which were amazing. Taught me all about anxiety, stress, depression, low mood, sleep, the whole works, mindfulness. So I had all this knowledge. Regular visits to the doctors like I'd never had before. I was thinking, well, I am taking care of myself now. Work was actually amazing. Flexible working is something I'm a huge advocate of. So, working from home, or working hours that fit in with maybe the school runs and all that kind of stuff. And I felt like I was doing all the right things. And what happened was 18 months passed, and then I had another breakdown. But the breakdown was a result of, I was involved in this massive regulatory project across the whole industry. It was, pretty crazy. I'm responsible for millions of customers across lots of different brands, and lots of deadlines. And one of my colleagues comes up to me and says, Martin, the project manager is really, really worried about you. I'm like, this is one day when I've actually made it into the office despite my flexible working, which actually at that point is really tricky because I'm absolutely exhausted, and things are taking its toll. But I've made it into the office, and they say, they're really worried about it. They're so worried that they've had a word with me. And actually, we discussed this, and we're so worried about you that we've spoken to your manager. And I tell you, in that moment, the floor just went away from me. It was like I'd been swallowed up. My whole world collapsed around me. I'd been trying to keep it together for so long, trying not to show a weakness, try to, just carry on regardless, try to be the strong person, and it wasn't about being macho. It was about just trying to do your best, and you were trying like you were doing your best. And then I've got my dear friends coming at me and saying, basically, your best isn't good enough. And that's what I heard in my head. But obviously they were coming at it from a complete perspective of love and compassion. They were genuinely worried about me. And I was so bad. I'd got so bad. It was obvious to everybody that I was ill. It was obvious other than to myself. And it was at that point, I got signed off. The previous time I had like 2 weeks off. Really, I should have had a lot more. It's not the doctor's fault. It was my fault because I couldn't possibly have time off work, surely, because that shows weakness. This time I got signed off, and actually, I got signed off every like 4 weeks. And it led to a whole year being signed off of not being able to work. And what I found, the story then is, yeah, I went through all the medication and everything. I was trying to put into practice everything that I'd learned, but something was wrong. I couldn't make it work. And actually, what many people and what I thought at the time is, it's got to be work, right? Because if it wasn't for work, I wouldn't be stressed, because I wouldn't have all this work to do, and I wouldn't have these deadlines. I wouldn't have to deal with these people and regulators. So if it wasn't for work, then I wouldn't have the stress. If it wasn't for work, I wouldn't be working the long hours that I'm working. If it wasn't for work, I'd see my family more. If it wasn't for work, I'd be able to take more care of myself, because I'd have time to do that. So it's got to be work. And everybody tells themselves that. It's got to be, the reason I'm feeling like this is work. Well, after 2 or 3 months off, away from work, I actually felt worse than ever. So then I'm thinking, what is going on? It can't just be the work. And what you find out is that work is a huge factor, because it's an environment you spend a lot of time in. But you've got to unravel an awful lot of other things, because it's how you're handling the work, and it's your mindset and your values and all sorts of things. And unfortunately for me, I was struggling so much that it got to a point, not wishing to depress your listeners even more, but there is an upside, trust me. But it got to a few months into being off, and it had got so bad that the only way I could see to get better, because I thought I had tried everything, bearing in mind everything that I had tried to do and take care of myself. The only way that I could get out of this was to take my life. And for anybody to reach that point is just horrific. To feel like there's no hope, to feel like you've done everything you possibly can, but you're still not good enough, and therefore really you shouldn't be here. You're a burden to other people. I get choked up about it, because it's a horrible place to be. And luckily for me, I'm sat here talking to you. So that decision, there was intervention, thankfully. And my wife and my doctor are amazing. My wife is incredible. She saved my life more than once. Now, what happened was, that was my, I kind of call it, I had 3 pits. So I had my pit 1, the pit moment was, breaking down in the office in front of my laptop. The pit 2, where I was told about that, and then actually it all just came out, and absolutely right, I just fell apart. And then this was obviously the lowest point in my life. Now, what happened with the intervention was the doctor stepped in, psychiatrist stepped in, and again, this has all come from a build-up of stress and not dealing with it. You think back to my story. I'm working in a professional life. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm coping. I'm normalizing what's happening, saying this is how it's got to be. This is how it's got to be. And then at some point you just fall over. And then, I've gone from somebody who's very successful in business to somebody who can't work, decided they wanted to take their own life, and is sat on a psychiatrist's couch. This is serious stuff. This is what happens if you don't deal with it. And people think, well, it's a bit extreme. It wouldn't happen to me. I guarantee you it will happen to you. It happened to me. But the amazing thing was, that was then the right intervention. What happened was, the psychiatrist said it didn't take them very long at all to assess that I had something called generalized anxiety disorder. So I didn't just have anxiety and, I could add some antidepressants and that would help. Actually, this disorder, it means that my anxiety levels are sky high all of the time. And so without very strong medication, they can't be brought down. So that was one of the reasons why I'd done all that learning through the NHS. I'd been doing everything. I've been trying to put into practice what I'd learned. But because my anxiety was still sky high, I couldn't think clearly, and I couldn't make it work. So as soon as we realized that, it was just a breath of fresh air. I could get the right treatment, and it was, I can actually think. There's not a million voices screaming in my head. Now, some of the listeners might say, well, okay, then. So basically, it was because you had that condition that this all went pear-shaped. How do you get generalized anxiety disorder? One of the main reasons you get it is because of a buildup of stress over a number of years. That's exactly what happened to me.
This all totally resonates with me so much. I'm listening intently because it's generalized anxiety disorder is something that I still to this day kind of work with. And I don't actually like to say, when people talk about managing stress or managing mental health, I'm not a huge fan of that kind of that perspective on it, really. I think it's about not necessarily kind of struggling with it or going into any kind of battle with it or managing it. For me, it's about just kind of like working with it. And there's ebbs and flows with any kind of mental health sort of long-term illness, and it's just about kind of like, I think for me, working with it. Would you agree with that? It
is, yeah, absolutely. With it, there are certain things that you can get over, and at the moment, for me, something like generalized anxiety disorder is something you do live with. But through, some people have medication. I have pretty strong medication, which helps get me through my day. That's fine. I can now, coach other people and everything, run a business. So I'm fully compos mentis. But it is about understanding what your triggers are, what your stressful situation, what is going to bring out the stress in you, the anxiety in you. And it's knowing how you can limit that and having the confidence and the empowerment, importantly, to do something about that. And that might be you avoid something. You don't go to that, that meeting or that social occasion, or it may well be you do it in a certain way, or somebody comes with you, or whatever it might be. It's you now know yourself better than anybody. And unfortunately, one of the things that happens when you go through something like this, when you have this sort of story, is you get to know yourself very well. And it doesn't take you long to realize, right, I'm in a certain place. If I don't do something about this now, this is going to get worse. So you just remove yourself, do what you need to do, whatever it might be. Some people meditate. Some people I love to go for a walk in nature. Nature grounds me. A little bit of distraction, whatever it might be. And then bring yourself back and then carry on. It's all about knowing yourself. And one of the things actually that the generalized anxiety disorder, once we got that under control, I could then put into practice everything that I'd learned, all about that stress and anxiety and low mood and mindfulness. I could actually do it and benefit from it. It was amazing. But one of the other breakthrough moments for me was with my therapist, was going through self-esteem and self-beliefs, the core beliefs and core values. This is where in my hero's journey, it's kind of that last part is the believe you're a hero. And for me, suddenly I realized, hinted at it earlier, that I'd basically been living someone else's life. That voice in my head when I was 18 saying, well, you need to be credible, professional, basically ignoring what my current skills and passions and everything was. And I just listened to this very authoritarian voice. And you can debate where that came from. But essentially, I was sat there in therapy, and I could see this shadow looming over me in the corner of my eye. It's surreal. And I realized it had been there all the time. So it was suppressing me, making me feel like I couldn't cope, making me feel like I wasn't good enough. And as soon as I kind of realized that actually I wasn't being true to myself, it's one of the reasons why I said earlier, I was sat being very successful in financial services, but something didn't feel right. I didn't feel like I fitted in. I didn't feel like it aligned with me. This was the reason. There was a massive part that wasn't being fed, if you like. And as soon as I kind of realized this, it all just stripped away. And for the first time, I stood in my own shoes as Martin. For the first time, basically in 20 years, saying, I'm comfortable with myself. I know who I am now. And I don't want to feel guilty about that. I'm not going to feel guilty about that. I am good enough. I can do everything, and that's what I say to clients. You can do everything that's being asked of you. It's not you. What you can't do is you can't do it all at the same time, and you certainly can't do it by end of play yesterday. That's the failing. It's the system and the process around you. It's not you. You are good enough. You've got everything inside you. And both of us are coaches. We coach people. We don't give anybody anything extra. They've already got it all inside. What we do is we unlock that. And then they can stand confident in their own shoes. And what an amazing, thing to have happen to you. And then you realize there is a massive world out there. And, I went through all of this, but what I realized was, I'd done my service in financial services. That actually, if I went back to that environment, I'd have to use every trick under the sun that I knew just to get through the day. So what actually would have been, a few years back, a very difficult decision for me to make. It's like, leave my job. Are you kidding? I've got the security, I've got the pension, what am I going to do? I've got bills to pay, I've got a family to feed. Actually, it was made very simple. It was all of a sudden, this is exactly the right thing for me to do. And I feel like I need to do that. And so I left and said, if there's one thing I'm going to do with my life going forward, if there was one thing that was really missing in my life, my passion was helping other people. And now what I realized, through the work of Ted, it took me 18 months to try and figure this all out, but was I had a life story to tell. I had life lessons to give, and I can make the world a better place, and I can help people not get to the places that I got to. And that now feels completely at ease and is my life purpose. And it feels so good to be that person. So that's my journey. And so when we talked about the hero of the journey, and you asked me who's the hero, I now feel like that hero because I've been through that. And one of the things that I truly, truly believe is that I have been through all of what I've been through, all the ordeal I've been through, all the depression, all the darkness, all the struggle, all the stuff that I didn't think I could get through. I was chosen to go through that because I would come out the other end. It was painful, it was horrible, and it was close. But I was chosen to do that so that I can then use all of that experience, all that passion, and help other people, because there are other people who won't have the strength to get through it. And so we've got to catch them earlier. And so, that's a wonderful passion to have. It's a wonderful life purpose to have. And I've never been happier. I've never been, more at ease with myself. And I've never seen the world as clearly as I do now. It's a beautiful place.
It's amazing. And I could just listen to you all day long. I think you're a wonderful storyteller. And you just...
Thank you.
I think you just make it so easy to kind of understand, and there's definitely going to be people out there listening to this thinking, yeah, that's me, totally making it so relatable. And so what would you say to those people then that might actually be thinking, listening to your story and thinking, I think that could be me, like I could be in that, maybe in that situation. What would you say?
So there are three things that I always bring out, and that is, and I go back to, I've mentioned it, is first one is you are good enough. Because when you're sat there and you've got all this pressure and you've got all these deadlines and you've got 800 things to do on your to-do list, you've got regulators breathing down your throat, you don't feel good enough. You don't feel like you can cope. And being good enough and not being able to cope are different things. Like I said earlier, you can do everything that's being asked of you, and you know that. You just can't do it all at the same time. The issue is with the amount of stuff that you're being asked to do. And that's a system thing. That's a cultural thing. That's an environment thing. It's not you. You are good enough. So that's really important for you to believe, or start to kind of, tell yourself that actually it's not you. And what that then leads to is feeling like you're feeling, this overwhelmed, stressed place that you're feeling. It's not okay. Somehow, like I did over 10 years, I normalized it. I said, this is the pressure, this is the stress, this is the overwhelm that obviously I have to feel in order to work in this business, in this role, in this country, in the 21st century. This is how it is. It's not. I mean, I have to tell you, it's not. It is not how it should be. It is not how you should be feeling at all. And one of my coach friends has had a great way of putting it. You kind of think that this is the tax you have to pay in order to work in business.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's a brilliant.
There's a monetary tax. It is not a health tax. You are not expected to fall over and sacrifice your beliefs, your core values, your family, your health, your life. You are not expected to sacrifice all of that.
But let me ask you, Martin, do you think that workplace culture kind of contributes to that perception?
Hugely, hugely. And I'm not going to write off every business, because actually there's a huge amount of great work being done out there at the moment. Mm-hmm. Cultures are changing, processes and systems are changing. The focus on mental health in the last few years has been amazing. And there are companies that are doing incredible things for their colleagues. But I'm not going to say it's all, just because there's been a lot of coverage that it's all changing and it's all okay. It's not. There are still businesses that are working in a very almost Victorian way. And it's not about the people. What I find, people always say about, I'm just a number and all that kind of thing. For me, coming out the other side and seeing the world as it is, I see people as not as workers, not as employees. I see people as sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, grandfathers and grandmas. I see them as that. So why can't we treat people like that? Yes, they've got skills. Yes, they can do business. But at the end of the day, these are people. And without people, there is no business. You have no business. And the kind of attitude to say, well, if you can't cope out, or if you leave, that's fine, we'll just get another poor sucker in. That's not how it should be. And something that I have found really enlightening, I guess, and really encouraging is that I've been speaking to people all over the world. It's an amazing place to be now. It's so easy. And a lot of other coaches, and especially young people, and they have gone to university, they've done really well, and then they've gone into business because of kind of the same voice that I had. And instead of waiting 20 years like I did, there was always a new opportunity every 6 to 18 months. That's kind of what I was hanging on, because I was always getting new roles. But the younger generation seemed to be making the distinction very quickly and going, you know what, this isn't healthy for me. This isn't the right culture. This isn't the right environment. This isn't people-based. This isn't making me make a difference in the world in the way that I want to. Actually, I'm out. And the amount of young people that I've spoken to that have made that call in their kind of early 20s and then gone on to go set up their own business, their own online business, or a coaching business, or whatever it might be. That is incredible situation. And I guess it's also a wake-up call, because actually you haven't got this whole line of people that are waiting to come to your organization to be kind of spat out the other end. Actually, these people are more wily now. They want to make a difference in the world, just like we do now. It's taken us a little while for the Enlightenment, but they want to make that difference. And actually, when you come out of what can be a very suppressive business environment, where all you know is that business, and that it just engulfs you 24/7, once you come out of that, you realize how amazing the world is, and how connected the world is, and how you can work with the best coaches in the world, like Tony Robbins and like Ted McGrath. You can work with these people easily. They're just at the end of a phone or the end of a laptop. You can level yourself up incredibly easily, and you can connect with incredible people all around the world. And since then, I've just, this community that we are a part of, we share the community, Louise, but that community is incredible, and it's a community that I've not seen, in 20 years in financial services. And this isn't a dig at my previous employers, because I had a lot of good support from them. But the community that has been built on the likes of LinkedIn, of like-minded people, like-minded coaches, therapists, and business owners, is inspiring and motivating. and there is always somebody out there that can help and pick you up. And I guess, that would come down to my third point. I said, the first one, tips for people. You are good enough. Feeling like this is not okay. And the last one would be reach out and talk. You've got to reach out and talk. And I know from experience how much courage that takes, because you'd feel like a failure if you ask for help. Trust me, you're not a failure. You've been strong for so long. It's not a failure to then say, you know what? I've tried everything in the book. I need to see something from a different perspective. And for me, I set up my business called Empathy Coaching. It's really important that for my clients, I can empathize with them. Hence the reason I work with professionals in the kind of environments that I worked in. And, I know what that's like. And I know how fearful it can be. And fear drove my decisions, my wrong decisions for a long time, because I didn't want to be found out, or I didn't want to be felt like I wasn't good enough. I didn't want to go in the next restructure. I didn't want a performance review that was bad, and all these kinds of things, which actually are arbitrary, because actually it was killing me inside. So reach out and talk is really important. It's my third one.
Yeah, I often talk about having your own team. And I think, like you say, with the beauty of the internet now, all of these resources are at our fingertips so easily, so readily available. With you can go on Facebook and you literally don't have to spend money. You can watch live shows, you can get free ebooks, you can tap into Facebook communities. It's all there. And I think for me, like the importance of having my own team. So I have a coach, I have a mentor, I have people that inspire me every single day that I connect with, and I just think it's just so important. It makes me, kind of continue to be and show up as, the person that I am, but also contributes massively to my health and well-being, and keeping myself well, and all of that is top of my priority as a coach, so that I can show up for other people. So
absolutely. A coach isn't something you get just because you're falling over. Like you said, we've both got coaches. Coaches have coaches. They have mentors. They're not a manager. So when you're in business, you kind of have a manager, don't you, or a peer. These are people that help you level up. They'll ask you the questions that need to be asked. They'll guide you on their experience. I mean, it's incredible. And there, like you said, there is a lot of resources out there. And so, do a Google search and you'll find something. If I'm overwhelmed and stressed, look at what the resources are available. One thing I would be mindful of is that there is so much stuff out there. So you can then get actually overwhelmed by the amount of stuff, because then you say, I don't know where to start. What's the starting point? And the great thing about a coach or a mentor is they'll have a structure. They'll know the steps you need to take. And for the likes of me, what I realized was it would be no good, when you're stressed and overwhelmed and all you can see is your work, and you've got no time, you're feeling ill, you're not sleeping, we can't have a long conversation about your core beliefs and your core values and your self-esteem. You haven't got the capacity, you haven't got the bandwidth to take that in or even process all of that. What you actually need at that point is some very simple actions to take that is going to help you manage what your main problems are at the moment. Manage your work a little bit better, manage your time a little bit better. And that's about, the hours you work. And this kind of thing, very basic, grounded things that you're really struggling with now. That's what you need to begin with. And then once you start doing that, once you start getting a handle on that a little bit better, not perfect, but a little bit better, that frees up a little bit of mind space, a little bit of time for you then to go, right, okay, it's still bad. I'm managing it. What's the next thing that I need to look at? And that's when you then start looking at your thought processes. And, it's stress management, but it's not coping strategies. Like I say, it's not about that. It's really understanding yourself and what is triggering you all the time. And how can you reprogram your mind a little bit to think a little bit differently? And once you do that, guess what? You're doing your actions as well. Then you've freed up the space in your head and the time to then go, right, what's all this self-esteem business about? Because I still don't feel, I still don't feel great about myself. I'm not as stressed. I can deal with the work a little bit better, but I am so unhappy. Right. Let's have a look at that self-esteem issue and see where that comes from. And then you unlock all of that. And guess what? At the end of that, hero of your journey. But what you do is you go on mini heroes journeys all the way through, because if you take the right action, you've gone from overwhelmed and stressed to, well, actually, I can manage this a bit better. Hero, great. Then you go on to the next one. I'm thinking a little bit better. I understand myself better. Hero, great. At the end of it, then, okay, self-esteem, hero. But you've gone on that journey, and now you've got all the skills and knowledge and the practice to be able to then stand confident in yourself. I find that just a wonderful thing. And well, you could tell I'm so passionate about it. But I'm so passionate about it as a concept, but I'm passionate about it because I don't want people to go through what I went through, because it is a horrible, horrible place to go. And nobody deserves to go through that. For them, for their friends, for their family, don't go there. So reach out, talk, realize it's not you. You are good enough, and the feeling like you are feeling, it's not right. It doesn't have to be that way, and that's not just me saying it doesn't have to be that way. I know it doesn't have to be that way, because if you can act and think and believe slightly differently, you change the mindset a little bit, and the way you're processing things, the way you have a relationship with work, which is important. Once you see your relationship with work as it should be, rather than what it is at the moment, then you're freed up to live a far more abundant and fulfilling life. And
where can people reach out to you then?
Where can they reach out to me?
Yeah.
I have a lovely website, empathycoaching.co.uk. I am on Facebook, and I am on LinkedIn. I do a lot on LinkedIn. There's a big community there. I am on Twitter as well. I've even got an Instagram account, believe it. And they're all under Empathy Coaching. So if you just Google Empathy Coaching, I'll be right there. You'll see me smiling.
Aww.
So that's where I am. A lot on social media. I do a lot of posts. I've shared my story. I haven't shared all of my story, but I've shared the worst parts of my story, ironically. But again, it's just demonstrating that, we don't want to leave it this late. And actually, the more people talk about this stuff, the better it is, because people will realize, actually, you know what? Yeah, we do need to do something about this. And going back to like that coach scenario and getting a coach, it's important that you get one that fits you and that you're comfortable with and maybe does resonate with your story. Anyone can coach from a textbook.
Yeah.
But actually to have that lived-in experience like you and I have, that's invaluable to really understanding how somebody is feeling. So, that's the other thing I just mentioned.
I second that.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Martin, for sharing your story. I know that, there's going to be people out there listening and feeling really inspired and feeling hopefully more able now to reach out as well. So it's been fantastic to have you on the show. Absolutely loved it. And
thank you.
thank you very much.
My pleasure.